Hey everybody, and welcome back to continuing coverage of the StarCityGames.com Open Series here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm Joey Pasco.
I'm Adrian Sullivan.
And we already talked to you guys a little bit about the metagame and what it looks like here in New Orleans. What we wanted to talk about a little more was some of the more rogue decks that showed up. We have,
or awesome decks, as they're sometimes called.
That works. Now, some players showing up with, believe it or not, Burning Vengeance has shown up. A Seance deck showed up. We've got some very interesting decks, and I believe Ruben Bressler is working on some deck techs of some of these decks, so you guys can get a little deeper look. But yeah, what have you seen, Adrian?
I've seen. We talked about Epic Experiment before.
Yeah.
There were 3 Epic Experiment decks in the room. Mm-hmm. For a little while, one of them was in the running. It looks like he just got knocked out of the running for top 8, but he was in the running for most of the day. We already mentioned the Seance deck, but one of the things I really loved was a deck we were kind of affectionately calling Curses.
Curses! Yeah. With an exclamation point at the end.
Yes, that's how you spell that one, is exclamation point. Like elves, exclamation point.
Right, elves and goblins sometimes.
I've never seen that one. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I have an article from 2002. Go back.
I'll have to show it to you. There we go.
Yeah.
So what would we talk about first if we're going to talk about crazy decks? Which deck would you want us?
Let's talk about Curses.
Curses!
so we'll just tell this story real quick.
Okay.
We're sitting
How does
over
it
here.
start, right? We're here. We're waiting to get broadcast.
Right, this is earlier this morning. Ruben comes over and says he's watching probably the best match or best game of Magic he's ever seen.
Right.
So, of course, we want to see this.
That's a big claim.
We go over the matches between a Curses deck and we'll call it Nosum deck, right?
Nosum, very Nosum.
A Gnaw to the Bone deck. Black Rug is what, what it was referred to as, or you could say Blue Jund.
Yeah, well, one of the things that this other deck was doing, right? You called it a Gnaw to the Bone deck. Mm-hmm. He was a 4 Gnaw to the Bone, and he had this recursion element we'll get to in a bit when we talk about more of the rogue decks. Mm-hmm. But we come over, and it looks pretty bad for our Gnaw to the Bone player. We don't realize he's got Gnaw to the Bone yet.
Yeah. We just go over. He's got kind of an empty board.
Yep, and meanwhile, Curses guy
is piling up curses. And he finds Curse of Misfortune. It lets him every turn tutor up another curse. Gets Curse of Bloodletting, which is the furnace, the one-sided Furnace of Wrath.
Right.
He's got a bunch of Azorius key runes on the board. So he's basically every key rune is a double striker essentially. Yep. It's not double strike, but it's a 3 damage representing 6. He's got the Curse of Misfortune. I'm sorry, I already mentioned the Curse of Misfortune. What's I'm misremembering
Curse of
the
Thirst?
name. Curse of Thirst, that's it. I have it in my notes, but I couldn't find it. Curse of Thirst, the one that's doing a damage for every curse.
Every curse.
Right, so now he's got Curse of Bloodletting, he's got Stensia Bloodhall. He's doing all this damage with all these curses, twice as much.
Curses.
He's doing 30 damage a turn at one point in the game.
Repeatedly. He knocks it at first, right, and does the 12, and this guy goes down to 3, his opponent, and then his opponent gains like 24. He's like, well, I better, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna do that again, I guess. So I'll add it up, and I'll do another 18 damage to you.
Yeah, he adds another.
And the guy's like, how about 24 more life?
Another key rune.
And then we get to a point with all of the damage that the one guy's doing. He's doing 30 damage a turn.
Yeah.
He's doing 30 damage off of key runes and off of curses.
Yes. And that was it. It was just like every turn, activate all my key runes, attack, and my curses every turn are dealing the damage. So it was 30 a turn,
which
seems like enough.
Pretty absurd.
100% absurd. And so this guy consistently doing 30 a turn, and scoops.
He couldn't. Yeah,
he couldn't
get through. But the thing that was really neat about it, though, is that this Curses deck to begin with, right? It's a red-black control deck, effectively, and it just is doing some really, really awesome things control-wise. But then, meanwhile, it gets down a single Curse of Misfortune, and the rest of the curses just kind of seep out of the deck on their own.
Yeah, it's Rakdos control. It's got Olivia, burn, removal. That's it. It's black-red control. He's got 4 copies of Curse of Misfortune, which, as soon as he casts that, lets him tutor up a lot of one-ofs. He's got a lot of one-ofs of the other curses, even Curse of Death's Hold, which is one that we actually do see in Standard, as opposed to the rest of the curses.
Right.
He says, he shuts down opposing Azorius key runes. He shuts down Snapcaster, but it's also just about a critical mass, and you guys will see more about that in his deck tech, which he did with Ruben.
Now the guy he was playing, his deck basically it has this element of mill itself, with Grizzly Salvage, with Mulch. With Forbidden Alchemy, and then with Drownyard to drown himself, and then Snapcaster Mage to basically buy back an Alchemy or a Grizzly Savage or a Mulch to just get himself down to no cards. And then in his deck, he's got 1 Memories Journey and 1 Runic Repetition. Now, you might not know Runic Repetition off the top of your head.
Yeah.
Blue, 2, sorcery. Target exiled card is, I believe, put into your hand.
Yeah, I think you basically get a card back out that has been exiled. But it has to have flashback.
Yeah, a target has to be a flashback card.
So basically, if you've already flashed something back, it's exiled. Now you can use Runic Repetition to get it back. He has Memories Journey, and he basically can create an infinite loop. So he's resilient to decking. So basically, you're like, okay, so this guy can never get decked unless I can get a well-timed counter spell to counter like the Runic Repetition. So I'll kill him with damage. Oh wait, he's gaining 30 a turn. Well, he's gaining 30 a turn, gaining 70 life, or cumulatively.
The most he can get is 60 life a turn.
Okay.
Just because he doesn't have a way to draw cards.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't at once.
But he can keep going and going and going and going and going. And then meanwhile he's like, well, how do I kill them? Well, I can Drownyard them out, or I can throw in a Thragtusk into the mix and just keep on letting Thragtusks happen. And either way, that works.
Yeah, he has Snapcaster, he has Dawn Treader Elk, he has Huntmaster of the Fells, and he's got Thragtusk. So he can actually go aggro a little bit, but it's mostly, he said, so he doesn't die. Like, a lot of that gains him life. And, they represent creatures in the graveyard for those and all to the bone. So very, very interesting list. He did say, he's weak to the blue decks. He said when he plays non-blue decks, he mostly wins. He did draw against the Curses player.
I think he might have been enjoying having such a crowd around him. I mean, what we were having at one point is before the combo went off, is that it looked like Taylor Scott was just barely hanging on. And his opponent was dealing
the Knot of the Bone deck.
Yeah, and the Curses player was doing 30 damage a turn, and he was barely staying alive, and then he locked it out.
Right, he actually proclaimed, because I think you said something like he's hanging in there, and he's like, I'm more than keeping up. I'm going to win this game. I'm winning this game. And he did.
I actually knew, but I wanted to enjoy that moment too with him, in the sense, because I didn't want to give anything away. I didn't want to say to his opponent, well, it's locked up now.
Yeah, it was very, very cool Magic to watch.
Very, very cool.
Game 1 took a little while. Game 2 was very quick. And then Game 3 went to time. They drew. So unfortunately for that. But he was saying, the blue decks give him some trouble, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
I counter you Runic Repetition, and you deck yourself.
Yeah.
Then you're kind of out of luck.
Well, one of the things we have, besides these two decks which play against each other, you have a couple, one more at least?
I had the Epic Experiment decks, which we already talked about.
We've talked about that a little bit this weekend already in one of the previous videos. If you have not been paying attention to people casting, let's say, Boundless Realm, or let's say Ranger's Path, these are the new ramp cards to go with Farseek if you are looking to ramp. Now, obviously, Boundless Realm is no... let's just put it this way, he's no giant.
Okay.
Boundless Realm is green 6, and you put a number of basic lands into play equal to however many lands you have in play. So if you've got basic lands in your deck, you can basically double your mana, which is pretty crazy. But the awesome thing then is it takes all this land out of your deck. So when you cast Epic Experiment, your Epic Experiment for a lot, not only are you going to have a lot of mana to cast it, but there's just less land in there.
Yeah.
So you can actually get something really impressive going.
It's kind of like an exponential kind of situation there, where you're like taking out things, so you're hitting more spells, and you're hitting twice as many because you just doubled your land count.
Right.
So it's very, very huge gains there.
Now, this deck did well, I want to say, at the Missouri State Championship.
I think that's right.
Got a top 8. It was covered by Travis Wu and by Mike Flores at different points this week as well. And one of the things that I think a lot of people disagree on is what to do once you're going to make this deck happen. This deck is running Devil's Play for the win, and Devil's Play is a pretty solid win condition, particularly when you're looking at a deck that can put out a ton of mana, and then use Temporal Mastery, and then perhaps copy the Temporal Mastery with something like Increasing Vengeance, for example, and then untap and actually Devil's Play you out, But one of the things about this list, he's calling it Jedi Epic, is There is an issue with the deck just trying to maintain itself against an aggro deck because you are doing a lot of just kind of
dirtling.
Yeah, we'll say dancing around. You're like, I get some land. I'm dead.
Yeah.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah. It's not doing a lot of things until it can actually start doing, it's doing a lot of ramp, but otherwise not anything else until you hit like an epic experiment or something like that. So, but it's as soon as we saw this card, Epic Experiment, I think the Johnnies of the world unite and say, how can we break this card? And I think it's still got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's something telling about the fact that, from what I gather, Mike Flores was working on his own. I was working on it on my own. Someone in Missouri was working on it, and I was not aware of the other people's work until this week. Or I should say maybe a week and a half ago for one of them. But there's something here. I don't know if it's there yet. It could be that White right now what this deck needs is to make its Rangers paths a little bit better. And how does it do that? Maybe it does it with Gate Crash when it gets to actually find Breeding Pool, when it gets to find Stomping Ground.
Right on.
Right now it can't do that. So.
Yeah, but we do. We have a whole another set coming, just a couple months away.
Oh my God, February, right? Late January is the pre-release?
Late January, early February.
I can't wait.
Pretty exciting.
Get your Gate Crash now. If you're a cynic person like me, get your pre-orders in.
Yeah. I mean, just order your boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I love Simic and I can't wait. But I think that deck, Epic Experiment, is going to be waiting for a little bit more help before it can get there.
Sure, but I mean, it's already got a lot of potential, I think.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us with this awesome segment on Rogue Decks. We're going to have as many more segments as we can get in today. And I'm Adrian Sullivan.
And I'm Joey Pasco.
See you soon.